She moved toward me, her lips brushing mine softly, almost lovingly, as if nothing at all had shifted between us. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I held her eyes a moment longer than normal, feeling the weight of what I was about to say settle in my chest. I'm Daniel. For 5 years, I believed I knew my wife Sarah better than anyone. I trusted her, relied on her, built my life around the promises we made. I never questioned her loyalty, until recently. The changes started subtle. Her phone always flipped downward, conversations ending the second I entered the room, excuses that didn't quite fit together no matter how gently she delivered them. At first, I assumed I was the problem. Maybe I had become distant. Maybe I had overlooked something she needed. But eventually the signs were too loud to ignore. One night, the truth stared me in the face. Messages between her and someone named Jason. Messages full of things that made my chest tighten and my stomach sink. I read them over and over, hoping the context would suddenly shift, that I had misunderstood. It didn't. It was clear what I was looking at, betrayal, plain and undeniable. I didn't confront her that night. Instead, I stepped back and watched. Observed. Waited. I've always believed that if you remain quiet long enough, people reveal their real selves. And Sarah did. She kept up her cheerful facade, her loving gestures, her playful smiles, but I already knew what lived beneath them. I followed the evidence until I understood the full extent of what had been happening. And then I did what I needed to do. I made sure Jason understood the consequences of inserting himself into my marriage. Firmly, legally, unmistakably. I won't detail it. All that matters is that I resolved the matter in a way that left no confusion. The next evening she acted as if everything was normal. She laughed at dinner. She touched my arm lightly. And when she leaned in for a kiss, expecting warmth or forgiveness, I placed my hands gently on her shoulders, met her eyes, and whispered the sentence that stripped away the last layer of her pretending. I know about your lover. And I've already handled it. Instantly her expression shattered, shock first, then fear, then a frantic attempt to deny what she knew she couldn't hide anymore. I stayed calm, letting silence speak for me. She finally realized I wasn't the oblivious man she thought I was. Her lips shook. Her breathing hitched. For the first time in years she was the one without footing. As she stood frozen, my mind drifted back over the past months, every late-night excuse, every hurried phone lock, every strained smile. Trust, once cracked, fractures through every memory. I remembered the night she kissed me goodnight while texting someone else minutes later. A tiny alarm had gone off inside me, and eventually I could no longer silence it. Quietly, carefully, I pieced everything together. Jason wasn't an accident. He was deliberate, persistent. And Sarah had let him in. Standing there in the living room, seeing her struggle for words, I could feel the shift in power. I wasn't angry. I wasn't shouting. I was simply in control, for the first time in a long time. Do you understand what I'm saying? I asked softly. She nodded without looking up. She didn't need to explain. I had all the answers already. Jason's involvement had been addressed, and now she was left facing the fallout of her own choices. The days that followed were heavy. She moved around me like someone walking through a room full of broken glass, cautious, alert, wary. The confidence she once carried so boldly had drained away. I remained calm, sticking to my routines, letting her sit with the truth that everything she thought she controlled had slipped out of her hands. One evening she tried to speak, her voice shaking. Daniel, I can explain. I simply shook my head. There was nothing left to justify. The messages, the lies, they spoke louder than her voice ever could. She tried to approach me again later that night, her eyes glossy, her steps hesitant. When she leaned in, searching for the man who used to embrace her without question, I held her gently and spoke quietly. I know everything. And it's already been taken care of. Her face crumpled with regret and fear, the reality finally settling in. She understood that our lives would never look the same again. I didn't yell. I didn't demand apologies. Instead, I let her see a version of me shaped by clarity, not anger, the certainty that sometimes the strongest response is quiet decisiveness. And in that quiet, I felt something I hadn't felt for months, control over my own life again. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I finally refused to let lies define me.